I'm gonna go over everything that you need to make your own loaf of sourdough at home. First, you're gonna need a glass bowl. This is the bowl I like to use. It's nice and it's big, and you don't have to worry about your dough spilling over the top as it rises. Next, you're gonna need a Danish whisk. This funky shape will really make sure all your water and salt and flour is incorporated without you having to use your fingers to scrape out the inside of your whisk after. You're gonna need a hairnet or a bowl cover to go on top of your bowl while it is bulk fermenting so that your dough doesn't dry out. After your bulk ferment, you're gonna want a banneton basket. So you shape your dough and you're gonna put it in here, and it's gonna rest overnight and just get more funky flavors and add some volume to your dough. Last, you need a bread loom. You're gonna use this to carve those pretty designs right on top of your loaf. And last, you're gonna want a kitchen scale. Everything with sourdough is measured in grams. So you're gonna want one. We use this one just for sourdough to keep things consistent because sourdough is all about ratios. My personal belief with sourdough is it doesn't need to be complicated. You don't need very fancy tools or ingredients to make a really good loaf. For example, I'll start out my dough mixing with my Danish whisk. It gets too difficult, and then I just get my hands in there to really incorporate the flour and the water and the salt together. When scoring your bread, you can do it super simple and just do one score down the middle. That's called an expansion score, and it's gonna help the steam release from your bread so it gets nice and tall. Or you can get very technical with it, very detailed, and make really crazy pieces of art on your bread. I really love these weck jars for your sourdough starter. When I first started making Leland, I used a mason jar and I put the lid on nice and tight and put it up above my microwave. And a couple days later, my husband found it and it almost exploded because all of the pressure built up in the jar. So with these, you set the lid on it, it'll keep air, bugs, dirt, whatever out. But then if your jar does run over, this lid just allows it to run off without that pressure building and it exploding. So this funky looking spoon right here, it's called a spurtle. I like to use these because it gets nice and deep into your jar. It's curved, so it'll help scrape the edges of your jar to make sure everything is nice and incorporated. Got this on Amazon, all of this. Good Amazon search away. For your proofing baskets, these are the two traditional shapes you can get. These bamboo ones. This one is called a boule for a round shape, and this one's called a batard for more of an oval shaped loaf. For good bread looms, you have two options. This longer one is really nice for doing really simple designs like carving an ear or a wheat stalk. And then this smaller one is really good for getting the nice, really small details if you want to be a little more artistic with your loaf. Making sourdough is really easy to do. It doesn't have to be very technical. I tend to start my loaves at night. I do my stretch and folds, and then I let my dough just sit on the counter overnight to let it double in size. And then when I wake up in the morning, I shape my dough, throw it in the refrigerator for about 8 hours, and then it's ready to bake the next day. My son is almost 7 years old, and he loves to help me make sourdough after school. It's a great activity to do with kids. My son will get his hands dirty, mixing up the dough. He likes to help shape it, and then at the end of it, I give him this guy and just let him draw fun pictures or whatever he thinks on the bread. It's really simple, it's fun to get the kids involved, and the kids love eating the bread after seeing what they're able to create. Our starter is called Leland. He is named after my husband's grandfather, who was the head chef at Hotel Utah, where he met the love of his life, Claire. She was his bread girl. Claire was my husband's favorite person in the whole entire world, and we decided to honor his memory by naming our starter Leland. He loved bread and Claire loved bread, and so we make bread in their honor. So when you buy a package of Leland, either at the pop-up or online, this is what you will receive. It's packaged in a nice bread bag that we actually encourage you don't throw it away, because after you make your first loaf, you can store it in this bag to keep it fresh. You get 20 grams about of freeze-dried Leland. He is shelf stable for 25 years. We give you enough to make 2 starters just because we know that life happens and you forget about things and you get busy with kids and everything. So you always have a backup ready. And it includes really easy to follow rehydration instructions over 5 days. Just tells you step by step how much water, how much flour to add until your Leland is ready to bake with. How much starter you have depends on how much you discard it when you're feeding it. We have had starters in small mason jars, again in our weck jar. And when I'm making 4 or 5 loaves at a time, we'll have starter in our 1 gallon jar back here. How much you have is really up to you. If you're gonna make 1 loaf a week, this jar is plenty big. But if you're gonna be making more, sharing it with friends, you're gonna want a bigger jar just to keep more available. So when you are feeding your starter, you're gonna wanna pour about half of it out. That is called your discard. We like to put our discard in a Tupperware container in our refrigerator. We've used it to make muffins, pancakes, waffles, chips, crackers. There's so many things you can do with the discard. We really go through our sourdough loaves at my house. We are a big bread family. Last week, my husband made pasta and sauce, and I whipped up a loaf just so we could have fresh bread. We bring it to Sunday dinners. We use it with dips. Like once a week, we make our kids just pancakes. I will make a bunch of pancakes at a time, throw it in the freezer. I'm able to pop it in the microwave for a quick, easy breakfast for my kids before school. I shared some of my sourdough starter with my sister-in-law, and she has used it to make croissants and cookies. I haven't had the time to do that yet, but there are so many fun things that you can do with this that you don't have to use your bread or your starter or your discard that same day. When I first got the idea of making sourdough, I was really intimidated. I was nervous. I didn't know if this was something that I would be able to do. And like I said, we are a big bread family, and I wanted to be able to make healthy, easy bread for my family without all of the junk that you buy in a loaf of bread at the grocery store. I was very pleasantly surprised at how easy it is to make sourdough. When you look up videos and you're doing research, it sounds like there are a million steps to make a good loaf, and that can be the case, but I've got 3 kids at home, we're busy, I work, and it has been really exciting to make easy loaves that are consistent and delicious and that are gut healthier than normal bread at the grocery store. If you are nervous or scared about starting a sourdough journey, I promise you it doesn't need to be hard. Our rehydration steps, our recipe make things so easy that even a novice baker who knows nothing about making bread is able to make amazing loaves at home whenever they choose to. We had a friend who tried to make her own sourdough starter and was not successful with it. Her loaves were flat and dense. We recently sent her a package of Leland, and within 1 week, she was making the most delicious looking loaves, pancakes, everything for her family. And if she can do it, anybody can do it. When you purchase Leland, this is what your package looks like when you open your box. And let's go through everything inside of it. We like to package Leland in this bread bag. We encourage you not to throw this bag away. It is food grade safe, and we actually use these to store our loaves to keep them fresh after they are baked. When you open your package, you're gonna find a smaller bag that contains your freeze-dried Leland. These are based off weight, so you will get anywhere between 20 to 25 grams. It's about 4 to 6 pieces of the freeze-dried starter. What we recommend doing is weighing out your pieces till you're about 10 grams, sealing up this bag and putting it in your pantry, in a cupboard, setting it aside so when life takes over, you have your backup ready and available. We include an easy to follow instruction card that has very simple directions telling you how much flour and water to add, how long to let your starter sit, and it's broken down into over 5 days. By day 4 or 5, you should be ready to bake your first loaf of bread. On the back of the card, you have a fun little story about Leland and Claire, who our sourdough starter is named after, some troubleshooting tips, as well as our Instagram page, where if you have any issues getting your starter to rise, we encourage you to reach out to us. We're more than happy to work with you because we want you to be successful and make very easy, delicious, simple loaves of bread. And because we don't believe in taking anything too seriously, we like to include some fun little stickers just to encourage your sourdough journey. So when you are done, this is what your product will look like. It is a nice golden brown, crispy loaf of sourdough. Again, we just put it right back in that packaging bag, and this will keep your bread fresh for about up to a week. I'm gonna show you how easy it is to get started rehydrating your sourdough starter. After you crush up your starter, you're gonna let it sit for an hour to let it really dissolve. After an hour, you add 2 tablespoons of flour, put your lid on, not tightly, and let it sit overnight. Come back 24 hours later and do day 2. It's that easy.